Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
6:37, O'Connor and Company. Thanks for tuning in here. Busy Tuesday morning as we have peace in our time, it appears, in the Middle East. Although, we keep our eye on the situation. 7:05, Gila Franklin Siegel with the Jewish Community Relations Council of Greater Washington. 7:35, Matt Foldy back from Israel when all the missiles started flying. He might be Mossad, but we'll ask him when he joins us. At 8:35, Congressman Jim Jordan, chairman of the Judiciary Committee. It's Larry O'Connor with Julie Gunlock. And Julie, look who it is. It's your friend on the radio, Hans von Spakovsky.
Right.
Who often is your cohort when you're filling in for me when I take days off. Hans, thanks for joining us. Always good to talk to you, sir.
Well, thanks for having me back.
Of course, senior legal fellow in the Heritage Foundation Center for Legal and Judicial Studies, and you do your own podcast there, which is growing in its popularity, by the way. Case in Point is the name of the podcast. Congrats on that. We taught you everything you know. Hans,
that is true. That is true.
So quickly, let's reflect on yesterday's decision. This has to do with deporting illegal immigrants in this country to a third-party country.
Right.
Was this even a... I mean, the final decision was 6-3, but there's nothing unconstitutional about this, is there? This is obviously within the grounds of the executive branch.
Yeah, it is. Now, look, there's three things you should know about this. First of all, who was the judge who issued the nationwide stay in Massachusetts? His name is Brian Murphy. He's one of Joe Biden's midnight judges. When was the vote to confirm him? December 2nd, 2024. And he was so bad, so radical, that every single Republican voted against him, even Susan Collins, who is probably the most liberal Republican. He barely made it, 47 to 45, okay? Wow. So then let's look at this order. In essence, the Justice Department filed an emergency request with the Supreme Court to stay or suspend that judge's decision in Massachusetts. Oh, by the way, he's also a Columbia Law School grad. That tells you a lot about
Perfect.
him. The court granted it 6-3. Well, what does Sotomayor do, joined by the other two liberal justices? She writes a 19-page screed about how horrible it is what the court is doing and how it's grossly abusing its discretion. Well, she goes into great detail talking about this one very specific immigration statute. It's the one that covers aliens being removed from the U.S. And normally they go back to whatever country they're from, but she ignores and dismisses a catch-all in this statute, which specifically says that the government, the Secretary of Homeland Security, can basically disregard, that's the word they use, can disregard what the alien wants or returning him to his native land if it's impractical, inadvisable, or impossible. And they can disregard it if it would be prejudicial to the U.S. In other words, the Secretary of Homeland Security retains complete and total discretion to ignore all these other provisions of the statute and send them to a third world country. And for anybody who thinks, well, it's not prejudicial to return them to their native country, think about this. What's a big problem we have, Julie and Larry? It's repeat offenders, right? You have all these criminal illegal aliens. They're deported. 6 months later, they're back. Well, that's easy to do if you're from Guatemala and you return to Guatemala and you use all the same connections that illegally got you in the country in the first place to come back. If you're from Guatemala and you're now in Sudan, you may not be able to get into the country again quite so easily.
Hans, I don't understand the explanation. Can she read? She bases the does she? I don't understand. Do they ignore this? Do they just willfully ignore? Okay, they just
they do. Look. Let's call a spade here with Sotomayor and the other two justices. Remember, These are the same justices who, in recent cases, believe that doctors should be able to basically kill babies up until the moment they're born. There should be no limits on abortion. Last week, they signed on to an opinion in which they believe that parents, I mean, I hate to use this language, but that parents ought to be able to have doctors castrate their teenage sons.
Yes.
And yet they're concerned about criminal, illegal aliens being sent to countries that they might not want to return to. Obviously, they think that they should be given a choice of which Caribbean resort they ought to be sent back to.
Yeah, well, you joke. I mean, that really is the case. So, so this is a no-brainer. The power is restored to the executive branch. But it's another example of a federal judge, and we've had another couple of these federal judges do this over the course of the last couple of weeks. Right. Would it be out of line for Chief Justice Roberts to actually maybe send an email to these federal judges telling them they can't do this?
Well, not an email, but hopefully we will get an opinion soon in the birthright citizenship case in which the court lays out very strict rules on these nationwide injunctions. Oh, and by the way, this Judge Murphy, who also was a public defender before he became a judge at the last minute, he said every one of these illegal aliens has to be given the ability basically to claim asylum, ignoring these are aliens who've been in the country for years. There's a 1-year deadline. There's a strict statute says you got 1 year to make an asylum claim, and if you don't, that's it. And yet he's just ignoring that statute too.
Yeah. So this week, the rest of this week, we're looking, as you mentioned, birthright citizenship issue. And also, is there a decision about these nationwide injunctions as well, and that could have some lasting effect?
Well, it's the birthright citizenship case, because in that case, that the substantive issue is not before the court. They're not deciding whether Trump is right or wrong about his interpretation of the Constitution. They're deciding on whether the nationwide injunctions that were issued against him should be stayed or not. But look, we're also waiting. We're waiting for a decision on the porn case out of Texas. We're waiting for a decision on the school board case out of Maryland, where parents were told they can't opt their kids out of DEI.
Oh, that's right. In Montgomery County. Yeah. That's right. So we got a lot of decisions still coming. Are these decisions going to bleed into next week, or do you expect just this giant flurry on Thursday and Friday?
I think we'll get a giant flurry, but we still might get a day next week. Although it's July 4th week, and I'm sure that the justices all want to get out of town as soon as possible.
I know I would if I were them. All right, Hans, thank you so much, as always, sir.
Thanks,
appreciate
Hans.
it.
Sure. Thanks for having me.